Hello, my creepy midnighters, and welcome back to another episode of Reddit Horror Stories. I know, as promised, that we are usually reading Ouija board Reddit Horror Stories, but tonight some two different Reddit stories that I think it's worth the reading. So yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Your support means so much to me. Enjoy.
If you ever find a traffic light in the forest, don't move if it turns red. It's currently 3:42 a.m. and I have two tabs open. One is this doc, the other is a YouTube video titled 10 Minutes of Rain on a Tin Roof, because my dumbass brain refuses to sleep without ambient noise now. I was supposed to be asleep 3 hours ago, but instead I've been sitting in this stupid glow. Cracked phone screen to my left. Can of Monster that I definitely didn't need to drink to my right. Just thinking. Replaying it all again. I debated even telling this. It's been eating at me for months. I don't even know if I'm ready to say what actually happened at the end. But I can't keep pretending it was nothing. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that click. That plastic relay click from the light changing. Like a throat clearing before something happens. So yeah, this story's been sitting in my notes app half written since October. I keep trying to pretend it was a dream, or that I misunderstood. But nah, I was there. It happened. And if I don't say something, someone else is going to wander out there and maybe not come back. This started when I was working a dead-end landscaping job in rural Washington. I dropped out of school the year before. No dramatic reason, just burnout and a string of panic attacks that made lectures feel like someone sitting on my chest. So I moved back home, shaved my head, and took a job doing trail clearing with a guy named Mitch who smoked weed out of a soda can and listened to Joe Rogan on max volume in the truck. You get the picture. Anyway, one of the state contracts we had was for a lesser-known forest reserve about 30 minutes out from Olympia. This wasn't like a state park with marked hiking trails or bathrooms. It was government-owned land, mostly wild, with old service roads and stretches of trail that hadn't been touched in decades. Our job was just to clean up storm damage, remove downed branches, and report anything that looked dangerous. It was boring work. Long days, early mornings, and more mosquitoes than I thought existed. But it paid cash under the table, and I got to zone out most of the time. Some days we wouldn't see a single person. Just trees, rusted signage, the occasional fox or snake slithering off when we got too close. The first time I saw the light, I was by myself. Mitch had called out. Something about his cousin's wedding. I didn't care. I liked working alone. The silence made it easier to think. I was supposed to check a long stretch of trail that wound down along an old service path, then curved sharply toward a dried-up stream bed. This area was weirdly flat, like unnaturally level. I remember thinking it felt more like a trail in Minecraft than a real place. Everything was just too symmetrical. I was about 3 miles in when I saw it. Dead ahead, past a cluster of vine-strangled birches, there was a traffic light. I mean, a literal 3-lens traffic light. Red, yellow, green, suspended on a single rusted pole, maybe 10 feet high. No wires, no street, no road. Just sitting there in the middle of a forest trail like it belonged. It was green when I first saw it, glowing faintly even in the daylight. I laughed, out loud, like, what the actual fuck? I thought maybe it was art. You know how those weird wilderness installations pop up sometimes? Like that piano someone left in the middle of a canyon. Or that mirror maze thing in Arizona. I figured some eccentric dude hiked out here and set it up as a prank or some kind of performance piece. Maybe it was solar powered. The base had this thick metal housing with a weathered sticker I couldn't read. But still, it was on. The green light glowed faintly, even under the canopy. I walked a slow circle around it. No plaque, no wires, no trail cams. Just moss, earth, trees, and this thing humming like a sleeping machine. I almost kept walking. Almost. But then it clicked. I mean, clicked. Like how an old relay switch flips inside a vending machine when you press a button. A short, sharp, deliberate sound. The green light went out. Yellow. I stopped. I was still circling it, maybe 10 feet away. And my first thought was, oh, it's motion activated. Cool. Must be part of the art thing. Like a forest crosswalk, haha. But then the yellow faded too. And the red came on. I didn't know why I froze. My brain was laughing. But my body just stopped. Something about the way the light changed didn't feel programmed. It felt aware. Like it had seen me and was warning me. I know how stupid that sounds. Believe me. But I couldn't move. Every hair on my arm stood up. My legs felt like they were welded in place. And the worst part? There was no sound. I hadn't noticed the silence until that moment. No birds. No wind. Even the bugs had stopped. It was like the forest itself was holding its breath. Waiting. The red light pulsed softly. 5 seconds. 10. I don't remember exactly. But eventually it switched back to green with another click, and just like that, sound returned. Wind rustled the leaves. A crow screamed somewhere above me, like it had been unmuted. My body loosened up all at once. I stumbled back, heartbeat in my throat, suddenly aware of how badly I was sweating. I didn't touch the thing, didn't try to inspect it further. I turned and walked back the way I came. Fast. Almost breaking into a jog once the trees got dense again. When I got back to the truck, I sat inside for a full 5 minutes, just trying to get my breathing under control. I kept telling myself it was nothing. A prank. A weird project. Hell, maybe even a trail monitoring device disguised as a light. Something boring. Something explainable. But I never logged it. I was supposed to report unusual findings, even graffiti. But I just didn't. I knew if I wrote it down, I'd have to explain it, and I couldn't. For a while, I convinced myself it was just one of those strange things you run into doing trail work. Like that time we found a perfectly arranged circle of children's shoes in a clearing. Creepy, but ultimately meaningless. I didn't go back to that trail for a few weeks. But the light, it didn't forget me. And when I did go back, it was waiting. I hadn't been back to that trail since the day I saw the light. I made excuses. Told Mitch I'd rather handle the east clearing. Faked a limp once. Said I'd tweaked my ankle stepping off a log. Didn't matter. We were short-staffed, and nobody really gave a shit where we were as long as the reports got filed and nothing caught fire. Weeks passed. The green glow faded from my mind like a weird dream you try to tell someone about, but it falls apart when you say it out loud. But dreams don't leave bruises. Let me explain. About 3 weeks after I saw the light, I started noticing these gaps in time. Not like forgetting where I put my keys. No, I mean actual blackouts. I'd be watching Netflix on my phone, and then suddenly the screen would be dark, battery drained, and 2 hours gone. I'd wake up in my bed, boots on, jacket zipped, pine needles stuck to my skin like I'd been outside. I started keeping a notepad next to my bed. If I woke up somewhere else, write it down, date, time, what I remember. I even stuck a GPS tracker on my car, syncing it with my phone. One morning, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails and a red welt across my cheek, like something had slapped me hard. Still, no memory, just a cold metallic taste in my mouth, like battery acid or blood. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't tell anyone. Part of me thought maybe I was losing it. Part of me knew I wasn't. The tracker finally pinged something about a week later. My car had moved. At 2:11 a.m., according to the GPS history, it drove 12 miles north, parked for 13 minutes in an unmarked lot near the edge of the forest, then returned at 2:36. I don't remember any of it, but when I checked the floor of my car the next morning, there were muddy boot prints on the passenger side. I always drive alone. I didn't want to go back. Every part of me was screaming to stay away. But something kept pulling me, like the pressure you feel when you're being watched from the other side of a dark window. Not curiosity, not even fear. Obligation. Like that light hadn't just noticed me, it had marked me. Mitch got laid off the same week, so I was sent out alone again. I didn't even argue. The route looked random on the clipboard, but I knew where it would end. Sure enough, Sector 4, Northern Perimeter, Access Road 19C, the trail. It was dusk by the time I got there. Light thinning behind the treetops. I told myself I'd just check the perimeter and leave. A quick walk. No funny business. But the air was already wrong the second I stepped out of the truck. No birds, no wind. The silence wrapped around me like a thick, wet blanket. The trail felt deeper, like the trees had leaned in closer since last time, like the path was narrower or longer. My boots crunched on gravel, but the sound was swallowed almost immediately. I walked maybe a mile before I saw it, but it wasn't where it had been last time. It was further up the trail, maybe a quarter mile. And this time, it was already red. I didn't even think. I froze. My lungs locked. Every nerve in my body felt like it had been filled with ice water. The red light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Not mechanical, not a flicker, a pulse. That's when I noticed something new. There was something hanging beneath the pole. At first, I thought it was a bundle of cables. But no. It moved. It was a deer. Upside down. Hind legs caught in rusted hooks. Belly split open. Entrails trailing down like wet ribbons. Its head hung limp. Tongue blackened and swollen. One glassy eye reflected the red glow like a gemstone in meat. It hadn't been dead long. Blood dripped steadily onto a metal grate beneath the light. A grate I hadn't seen before. Like a drain. That's when I realized this wasn't art. This wasn't an installation. This was a fucking machine. Something old, fed by offerings, and something had fed it recently, because the deer wasn't cut with a hunter's precision. Its belly looked torn, like something had reached in and pulled out whatever it needed with bare hands. I was going to turn back. I wanted to turn back. But then the light clicked again. Yellow. I didn't run. I didn't move. I knew better. The yellow light flickered for a second longer than last time. Then I heard it. A shuffle. No. More like a crawl. Something moving behind the tree line. Not animal movement. Not that skittering, twitchy noise raccoons or foxes make. This was wet. Dragging. There was breathing too. Ragged and slow. Like someone with a collapsed lung trying to hold it in. I couldn't see it. Whatever it was stayed just out of sight. But I could hear bark peeling. Leaves crackling. The red light returned. Click. I didn't move. Not a millimeter. Something passed behind me. I swear to God, I could feel its weight. Like heat rolling off a furnace. I smelled rot. Like roadkill that had sat for a week. I thought I was going to throw up or piss myself or both. But I held still. Because I knew, if I twitched, if I turned my head even slightly, that thing would grab me, and I wouldn't come back. Seconds ticked by like hours. When the light turned green again, the forest stayed silent for another beat. Then the birds returned, distant, frantic. Like even they weren't sure it was safe yet. I ran. Full sprint, down the trail, lungs screaming. I didn't stop until I hit the gravel access road. I didn't even check behind me. I knew it was gone, or hiding again. But the worst part, when I got back to the truck, there was something on the hood. A gift. A warning. A human tooth. Still wet. That night, I dreamed I was lying on the road beneath the light. Paralyzed. The red glow above me pulsing. And someone, standing just outside my field of vision. whistling, over and over. The same 3 notes, descending, soft, like a lullaby sung by someone who's never heard music before. When I woke up, I had dirt in my mouth and blood on my socks, and I wasn't in my bed. I was in the woods, lying face up beneath a red light that faded just as I opened my eyes. And above me, the deer was gone, but something else was hanging from the hooks. Clothes. My clothes. I didn't scream when I woke up under that light. That's the part that messes with me the most when I think about it now. Not the horror of where I was, but how calm I felt for the first few seconds. My brain didn't panic. It didn't even question it. It just accepted the scene the way you accept furniture in a room you've always known. The red glow painted the undersides of the leaves above me like they were bleeding from the veins. The pole towered over my face, humming softly. My breath fogged in the air, even though it wasn't cold. It felt like the temperature had been drained out of the clearing, siphoned into the dirt. The hooks were empty except for my clothes, swaying gently like they'd just been disturbed. My jacket sleeve brushed my cheek. It was damp. Not with dew, with something thicker, sticky. I didn't look too hard at it. I didn't want my brain putting a name to it. I became aware of something pressing against my ribs. A shape in my hand. A phone. Not mine. Mine was in my pocket. I could feel the cracked edge digging into my thigh. This one was heavier. Older. The screen was already on, casting a weak grey light across my fingers. There was a single note open. No apps. No home screen. Just a block of text, typed in a plain font that looked like it belonged on an office computer from 20 years ago. It said, "When the light is red, you are safe if you do not move." Underneath that, "When the light is yellow, do not look into the trees." And finally, "When the light is green, you must walk forward. Do not run. Do not turn back." I read it 3 times. The words felt heavy, like they were pressing into my skull instead of just sitting on the screen. The light clicked. Yellow. My chest seized. Instinct screamed at me to sit up, to scan the forest, to find whatever had dragged me here. Every muscle twitched with the need to see, but the words on the phone burned in my head. Do not look into the trees. So I stared straight up at the traffic light, eyes watering from the brightness. My peripheral vision filled with motion. Shadows shifting. Branches bending in ways that didn't match the still air. Something leaned close enough that I felt breath wash over my ear. It was hot and wet, and smelled like the inside of a long-sealed basement. A whisper curled around the edge of my hearing. Not words. Not exactly. More like the shape of speech without sound. My name almost forming, and then dissolving. My teeth chattered. Not from cold, from the effort of holding still. The yellow stretched on and on. Time lost meaning. My arms went numb against the ground. I focused on the hum of the light, letting it fill my head until it was the only thing that existed. Then, green. I sat up slowly. Every joint protested. The clearing looked different, wider. The trees had pulled back, revealing a narrow path I hadn't seen before. It cut straight through the undergrowth like a scar. The phone vibrated once in my hand. The text had changed. Walk. I stood. My legs felt borrowed. I took a step onto the path. The forest reacted immediately. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was crowded. I could hear things moving in parallel with me, pacing my steps on both sides. Heavy footfalls that sank into the soil. The scrape of something hard dragging across bark. I kept my eyes locked forward on the thin ribbon of dirt ahead. I thought about running. Every survival instinct I had begged me to sprint, to break through the trees and not stop until I hit pavement. But the memory of that red light held me in place. The certainty that there were rules here, and that breaking them would end me in a way I couldn't even picture. So I walked. The path twisted deeper. The air thickened with a smell like wet iron. My ears popped. Pressure building inside my skull. I started hearing voices layered under the forest noise. Fragments of conversations I recognized. My mum calling my name from downstairs when I was a kid. Mitch laughing in the truck. A voicemail from my ex that I'd deleted months ago, playing back word for word in her shaky voice. They overlapped until it was a chorus. 1,000 familiar sounds stitched together into something monstrous. My vision tunneled. Tears streamed down my face, and I didn't wipe them away. Shapes flickered at the edge of my sight. Human outlines that kept pace with me. Just beyond the line I wasn't allowed to cross with my eyes. I could feel their attention like fingertips pressing into my skin. Curious. Hungry. The path opened into another clearing. In the center stood a second pole. Not a traffic light. A mirror. It was tall and rectangular. The glass cloudy and scratched. My reflection stared back at me, pale and shaking. But it wasn't perfectly synced. There was a half-second delay, like a bad video call. The phone vibrated again. Stop. I did. My reflection smiled. I hadn't moved my mouth. The thing in the mirror tilted its head, studying me with an expression that was almost affectionate. Then it raised its hand and pressed its palm against the glass. Something pressed back against my chest. A hand. From the inside. I felt fingers splay over my heart. Cold and intimate. My breath hitched. The mirrored version of me leaned closer, its eyes darkening, 'em, until they were pits. Behind me, the forest went completely still. The presence of all those unseen watchers focused into a single point, like a lens converging on my back. The phone's screen filled with one final line. Do not let it out. The hand inside my chest began to pull. Not hard, gently, testing. I felt a thread of something slide loose inside me. A memory, maybe. The sensation of my dad teaching me to ride a bike. It peeled away with a soft, sickening ease. The thing in the mirror inhaled sharply, like it had tasted something exquisite. I understood then what this place was. It wasn't feeding on bodies. It was feeding on pieces. If I let it keep pulling, I'd walk out of here hollow. Alive, maybe, but scraped clean of everything that made me recognizable to myself. I slammed my own hand against the mirror. The glass was warm, soft. It gave under my palm like skin. The reflection's smile faltered. For the first time, it looked uncertain. I pushed. Pain exploded through my arm as resistance met me from the other side. The hand in my chest tightened, trying to anchor itself. I felt more memories stretching, threads going taut. I screamed and shoved harder, pouring every ounce of terror and rage into that motion. The surface of the mirror rippled violently. Cracks spiderwebbed from the point of contact. Black veins racing across the glass. The watchers in the forest erupted into motion. I heard them surge forward, the ground trembling with their charge. The mirror shattered, not outward, inward. The reflection imploded, sucked back into a depthless dark. The hand tore free of my chest with a wet snap. I stumbled backward, gasping. The path behind me was gone. The clearing was shrinking, the trees closing in like jaws. The air filled with a sound like 1,000 whispers screaming at once. The phone in my hand burned hot. I dropped it, and it dissolved into a smear of black ash before it hit the ground. Through the tightening ring of trunks, I saw the faint glow of a familiar light. Red. The traffic signal stood at the far edge of the clearing, impossibly close. A final island of order in the collapsing chaos. I ran to it. I broke the rule. I ran. The instant my foot crossed back into the first clearing, the red light flared blindingly bright. Everything else froze mid-lunge. The shapes in the trees hung suspended, half-formed limbs reaching for me, inches away. I skidded to a stop beneath the pole, chest heaving. The red glow washed over my skin, and for a moment I felt protected, encased, like I was standing inside a circle nothing else could enter. The frozen figures twitched at the edges, straining against an invisible barrier. I saw fragments of them now. Too many joints, faces that looked assembled from mismatched parts, eyes stacked in vertical rows. They watched me with a collective fury that made my stomach drop. And then I noticed what hung from the hooks. It wasn't my clothes anymore. It was a row of faces. Human faces. Peeled clean and draped carefully over the metal like masks. Their eyelids fluttered weakly. Mouths opened and closed in silent pleas. I recognized one of them. It was the man who used to run the gas station near my house. The one with the lazy eye who always gave me free coffee when I was broke. His lips trembled, and in a voice so thin it barely existed, he mouthed a single word at me. Stay. The red light pulsed, and I understood with a clarity that hollowed me out. This wasn't just a warning system. It was a cage. And I was standing in the one place in that forest that the monsters couldn't touch, which meant they were going to wait. And eventually, the light would change. I don't know how long I stood under that red light. Time didn't pass normally there. It stretched and folded in on itself like something alive. My breathing slowed until it felt optional. The frozen shapes at the edge of the clearing stayed locked in their half-reached poses, a wall of unfinished violence. I could see details now that I wished I couldn't. Skin pulled too tight over bone. Fingers that ended in blunt, polished stubs, like they'd been sanded down from claws. Faces that kept rearranging themselves in tiny, nauseating shifts. Features sliding into new positions, and then settling like wet clay. They were trying to look like people, trying and failing. The row of hanging faces swayed gently above me. Their expressions cycled through terror, exhaustion, and something worse than both. A dull acceptance. The gas station man's eyes tracked me constantly. Whenever I met his gaze, his mouth moved in that same silent command. Stay. I wanted to ask him how long he'd been there, how he'd ended up like that. But the questions died in my throat. I knew the answer didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the light overhead, burning red and steady. My legs started to ache. A deep, grinding pain in the joints. I shifted my weight instinctively. The entire forest shuddered. It wasn't movement, not exactly. More like anticipation rippling through a crowd. The frozen figures quivered. A low sound seeped out of them. A collective exhale that smelled like damp earth and spoiled meat. I locked my knees and forced myself still again. The red light brightened for a fraction of a second, and the pressure eased. That's when I realized the light wasn't just protecting me. It was watching me. Every tiny adjustment I made sent feedback through the clearing. The pole hummed louder when I twitched, softer when I went perfectly still. It was measuring me the way a scale measures weight, and it was getting tired. The red glow had lost some of its intensity. The edges of the lens flickered faintly, a stutter that made my stomach drop. I looked up at it, pleading silently with a machine I didn't understand. Please, I whispered. The word sounded obscene in the silence. The hanging faces flinched as if I'd shouted. The gas station man's lips peeled back from his teeth in a grimace. The light clicked. The sound was small, casual, but it hit me like a gunshot. Red bled into yellow. The world lurched back into motion, I clamped my eyes shut so hard it hurt. The rules slammed back into my mind with perfect clarity. When the light is yellow, do not look into the trees. The forest exploded with movement. The creatures surged forward, their steps shaking the ground. I felt them circling the boundary of the light, testing it from every angle. Something slammed into the invisible barrier inches from my face. The impact sent a vibration through the air that rattled my teeth. Hot breath washed over my skin. A chorus of voices rose around me, each one wearing a different familiar tone. My mother, sobbing my name. My ex, laughing softly in my ear. Mitch, his voice thick with panic, begging me to help him. They layered over each other until they were indistinguishable. A tidal wave of sound pressing against my skull. I felt fingers brush my arms, my neck, my hair. Phantom touches that stopped just short of contact. Don't look. Every instinct screamed at me to open my eyes, to defend myself against whatever was crowding so close. My eyelids twitched. Tears leaked out from the pressure of keeping them shut. Something cold traced the line of my spine. A delicate, exploratory drag that made my muscles seize. A whisper slid into my ear, perfectly clear and horribly intimate. We remember you. The words weren't spoken. They were placed inside my head. And with them came a flood of images that weren't mine. People stumbling through the forest in different seasons. A woman in a business suit, heels snapping off as she ran. A teenage boy clutching a dead phone, its screen spiderwebbed with cracks. An old man crawling on hands and knees, leaving a smear behind him. All of them ending here. All of them standing where I stood, under the red light that always eventually changed. The yellow stretched on, elastic and cruel. The touches multiplied. Hands, or things shaped like hands, mapped the outline of my body without ever quite touching. Cataloguing, memorizing. Then, through the roar in my ears, I heard a new sound. A notification chime. Sharp, digital, impossible. My eyes flew open before I could stop myself. My phone was in my hand again. My real one. The cracked screen lit up with a familiar lock screen. A message preview glowed there. Painfully normal. Unknown number. You left your location on for a split second. Relief flooded me. A stupid, desperate hope that this was some elaborate prank, that I could still reach the outside world. My thumb moved on reflex, swiping the notification open. The screen filled with a live map. A single blue dot pulsed in the middle of a green expanse, labeled only with contour lines, and an empty grey grid. My location. The forest. Around it, dozens of red dots blinked into existence. They were closing in. As I watched, the dots tightened their circle with mechanical precision. Each one corresponded to a shape in the clearing. I could see them now with my eyes open, pressed right up against the barrier of the fading yellow light. They were smiling. Not with joy, with recognition. Like predators that had finally cornered something that had been running for a very long time. The light clicked again. Green, The barrier vanished. The first creature hit me before I could process the change. It moved with a speed that broke the illusion of its almost human shape, limbs unfolding in the wrong directions to propel it forward. Its weight slammed into my chest and drove me to the ground. The impact knocked the air out of me. I tasted dirt and copper. Hands seized my arms, pinning them. More shapes piled on, their bodies a suffocating mass. They weren't tearing into me. They weren't biting. They were holding me down. A path opened in the crowd. The others recoiled slightly, creating a corridor that led back into the trees. Something stepped through it. It was tall, taller than the rest. Its proportions were closer to human, but stretched, elongated like a shadow at sunset. Its face was smooth and blank, a pale oval with no features except a single vertical slit where a mouth should be. It knelt beside me with a careful, almost gentle motion. The slit opened. Inside was darkness. Not the absence of light, the presence of something that swallowed it. I felt a pull from that void, a pressure against my chest like invisible fingers digging in. The tall thing leaned closer. Its mouth hovered inches above my sternum, and it inhaled. The sensation was indescribable. It wasn't pain. It was subtraction. I felt something fundamental being drawn out of me, siphoned through my skin. Memories flickered behind my eyes and winked out like blown candles. My first day of school, the smell of my childhood home, the sound of my own laughter. They tore free in a silent stream, feeding the darkness inside that impossible mouth. Panic detonated in my gut. I thrashed against the hands holding me, but they tightened mercilessly. In the chaos of my fading thoughts, one image burned brighter than the rest. The red light. I twisted my head, searching for it. Through the crush of bodies, I saw the pole at the edge of the clearing. The lens was dark, dead. Desperation sharpened me. I didn't have strength left in my limbs, but I had weight. I let my body go slack, then jerked violently to one side. The sudden shift unbalanced the creatures enough for me to roll. I hit the ground hard and kept rolling, slipping out from under their grip like a body escaping a pile of wreckage. Claws raked my back, shallow and furious. I scrambled on hands and knees toward the pole. The tall thing screamed. The sound wasn't loud. It was deep, a vibration that rattled my bones and turned my vision grainy. The others surged after me, a tidal wave of limbs and teeth. I reached the base of the traffic light and threw myself against it. The metal was ice cold. Dead. I slammed my palm against the housing, screaming wordlessly. The creatures closed in, their shadows swallowing the last scraps of open space. Please, I choked again, to the machine, to anything that might be listening. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, deep inside the pole, something answered. A faint, familiar hum trembled under my hand. The lens above me flickered once, weak and sputtering. Red flared to life, The creatures hit an invisible wall mid-lunge. Their bodies snapped to a halt so abruptly it looked like they'd been caught in a photograph. The tall one froze inches from my face, its featureless head tilted in what might have been fury. I collapsed against the pole, sobbing. The red light bathed the clearing in its protective glow again, but it felt thinner now, strained, like a dying heartbeat forcing one more pulse. The hanging faces were gone, the hooks were empty, and in the sudden, suffocating quiet, I understood what the light had used to turn back on. It hadn't drawn power from the forest. It had drawn it from me. The red glow pulsed weakly overhead, each beat dimmer than the last. I felt a corresponding hollowness spreading through my chest, a cold vacancy where something essential had been siphoned away. The tall creature's mouth curved into the suggestion of a smile. It knew. They all knew. And as I stood there, shaking beneath that fading light, I knew it too. I couldn't stand there forever. And the next time the light changed, there wouldn't be anything left in me to bring it back. The red glow above me throbbed like a failing pulse, each flicker pulling something out of my chest in thin, invisible threads. I could feel it leaving. Not memories this time. Something deeper. The scaffolding that held the memories up. My sense of weight, of direction, of being a person who occupied a body instead of a smear of fear clinging to a metal pole. The creatures didn't rush me again. They didn't need to. They stood in a loose ring beyond the edge of the light, their frozen poses melting into a patient stillness. The tall one remained closest, its blank face angled toward me like it was listening to a private joke. I felt suddenly certain that this had happened before. Not to me, to others. This exact standoff. This exact draining. The light buying time with pieces of a human till there was nothing left to spend. My legs trembled. The red flickered harder. The tall creature took a single step forward. It didn't cross into the glow, but the air between us tightened, humming with pressure. Its mouth opened just a fraction, and I felt the pull again. A gentle tug at the hollow space inside me. I looked up at the light. The lens was cracked. I hadn't noticed it before. A hairline fracture ran through the glass, spidering outward from the center. With every pulse, the crack glowed faintly, like a wound leaking light. A thought rose in my mind, fully formed and alien. It's old. Not the way buildings are old. Not the way trees are old. Old like a scar that had healed and split open 1,000 times. Old like something built for a purpose that had been forgotten by everything except the thing itself. I pressed my forehead against the pole. The metal vibrated against my skin, and for a second my vision doubled. I saw the clearing layered over itself, multiple versions occupying the same space. In one, the pole was brand new, paint unchipped, the colors vivid. A man in an orange vest stood beneath it, clipboard in hand, arguing with someone I couldn't see. His mouth moved in angry shapes. The forest around him was thinner, younger, In another, the pole was rusted through, leaning at an angle. A woman clung to it, her hair matted with dirt, her eyes wide and empty. The creatures were closer in that version, their forms more defined, their hunger palpable. The images flickered faster. Dozens of people, dozens of endings. Some collapsed at the base of the pole, their bodies shrinking in on themselves like burned paper. Others ran when the light failed and were swallowed by the forest in a blur of motion. The constant in every vision was the light, always burning red until it couldn't. The tall creature's presence pressed harder against my mind, a sensation like a hand cupping the back of my skull. "You understand now," it said without words. I did. The light wasn't a cage for them. It was a cage for something else. For whatever lived in the forest that was worse than these things. Something the creatures feared enough to build a boundary around. Something that fed on them the way they fed on us. And the light needed a human to keep that boundary alive. I laughed then. A broken, hysterical sound that scraped my throat raw. Of course it did. Of course I'd stumbled into the one place in the world that ran on a currency measured in people. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound was so normal it hurt. I fumbled it out with numb fingers. The screen lit up with a flood of notifications that had been held back, queued somewhere outside the forest, and released all at once. Missed calls from my mum. Messages from a group chat, arguing about where to get breakfast. An email from my boss, asking if I could cover an extra shift. The normal world pressed in through the glass, bright and oblivious. My reflection stared back at me from the dark spaces between the icons. I barely recognized it. My eyes looked sunken, my skin grey under the red wash. Another message slid onto the screen, pushing the others aside. Unknown number. Trade places. The words sat there, simple and obscene. I looked up at the tall creature. Its mouth widened, not in a smile, in invitation. Behind it, deeper in the forest, something moved. The trees bent inward, their trunks bowing like they were making room. A darkness pooled between them, thicker than shadow. It had weight, shape. The air around it curdled. The creatures reacted instantly. Their confident stillness shattered. They recoiled as one, their bodies angling away from the approaching void. A sound rose from them, a high, keening whine that drilled into my ears. Fear, not of me, of what was coming. The red light surged brighter in response. A desperate flare. The crack in the lens widened with an audible snap. A shard of glass tinkled down and shattered at my feet. The darkness advanced another inch. The tall creature turned its head toward it, then back to me. The message on my phone pulsed. Trade places. Understanding slammed into me with nauseating clarity. They wanted me to anchor the light, to become part of it, to stand here and burn away piece by piece, feeding the barrier that kept that thing at bay. In return, they would leave, not out of mercy, out of survival. I thought about the faces that had hung from the hooks, the hollowed-out versions of people who had probably made the same calculation. I imagined myself joining them, my skin stretched into a mask, my voice reduced to a silent plea. The darkness swelled. The creatures shrieked. The red light flickered violently, struggling to hold. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could say no. I could let the light die. I could run into the forest and let whatever lived there take me in seconds instead of years. Or I could stay. Not as a hero. Not as a sacrifice anyone would ever know about. Just as a component. A battery slotted into a machine that had been running long before I was born. The phone felt impossibly heavy. I thought about my mum's missed calls, about the stupid argument in the group chat, about the extra shift I'd never work. I thought about the gas station man's silent command. Stay. My thumb pressed down. The screen went white. Pain didn't come the way I expected. There was no tearing, no ripping, just a sudden, total stillness inside me. Like a room where every piece of furniture had been removed, leaving only bare walls and echoing space. The red light exploded into brilliance. The darkness in the trees recoiled as if struck. A sound rolled out of it. A low, furious rumble that vibrated the ground. The creatures scattered, retreating in a chaotic rush. The tall one lingered for a heartbeat, its blank face tilted toward me in something that might have been gratitude or triumph. Then it too vanished into the forest. The clearing settled. The red glow stabilized overhead, steady and strong. The crack in the lens sealed itself, glass knitting back together with a soft hiss. The pole hummed with renewed vigor, a deep, satisfied tone. I tried to step away. My body didn't respond. I looked down and saw my hands fused to the metal, skin blending seamlessly with the surface. Panic fluttered distantly in my chest, muted and abstract. The emptiness inside me absorbed it without ripple. The forest breathed around the clearing. Birds resumed their songs. Wind threaded through the leaves. The world sounded normal again. People would walk these trails tomorrow. They'd laugh and take pictures, and never notice the traffic light humming quietly in a patch of trees that felt just a little colder than the rest. I could feel them already. Faint sparks at the edge of my awareness. Lives moving through the world beyond the forest. Each one a potential answer to the machine's endless need. The red light pulsed, and I pulsed with it. A rhythm settled into me, a purpose as simple and brutal as gravity. When the light is red, they are safe if they do not move. I understood the rule now in a way no words could explain. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise I was making for them. Somewhere in the distance, a footstep cracked a twig. A human presence brushing the boundary of the clearing. Curious. Unaware. The light above me glowed warm and steady, and I waited for them to step into view.
Well, if I find a traffic light in the woods, I will definitely turn around and run my ass off. And I suggest you do the same. It feels like the series From, if you know. Let's see what the comments also have to say about it.
I hate how normal the opening felt. Monster energy, Rain video, cracked phone. That made everything after it feel way too close to real life, like this could have happened to someone I know. I work seasonal trail maintenance in WA. There are stretches of land we're told not to log, not to survey, not to mark on public maps. No reason given. Just don't linger. I'm not saying this is real. I'm saying it lines up uncomfortably well. Now, the mirror scene made me put my phone face down. The delayed reflection smiling first. That's a primal fear I didn't know I had. So I adopted a stray black cat, and now my old Ouija board is literally moving on its own. It's just sitting there on the shelf, vibrating non-stop. I've been refreshing the same DM for like 40 minutes now. The guy's active. I see the green dot. He liked a reel 2 minutes ago, even hearted someone else's story. But mine, left on red. I don't even know why I care. I wasn't going to reply either way, but something about that unread message felt like a splinter under my nail, and it's already past 2 a.m. I've got an early shift tomorrow, and somehow I'm sitting here with cold coffee, dead phone battery, and that weird buzzing in my ear that only kicks in when the apartment goes fully silent. You know what I mean? When everything's off, no fan, no traffic outside, no neighbors stomping overhead, and all you can hear is yourself. Anyway, I wasn't even going to post this. Honestly, I'm still debating whether it's worth putting out there. Feels like I've been spiraling a little. And this whole thing, the cat, the board, the way it's all connected, sounds way too online when I say it out loud. But then I noticed something tonight that made me feel sick. Like genuinely sick. And now I kinda need to get it out of my system before I lose it completely. So yeah, here goes. I didn't adopt her, technically. She just showed up. It was raining hard that night. The kind of cold, needling rain that hits sideways and makes your clothes feel like paper. I'd just gotten back from a 12-hour shift, exhausted and half-drenched, fumbling with my keys outside my apartment, when I heard this soft little mew. Not like the high-pitched, desperate kind. This was low, quiet, like she was being polite about it. I turned, and there she was, sitting completely still under the glow of the busted street lamp, just staring at me, soaking wet, skinny as hell, fur clumped together like she'd been out there forever. But her eyes were sharp, too sharp, big, amber, and aware. I don't know how else to describe it. She didn't look like a stray. She looked like she knew me. I know that sounds dumb, but she stood up, walked right over, and without a sound, slipped into my apartment the second I got the door open. I didn't stop her. It's weird. I'm allergic to cats. Always have been. My mum had one when I was a kid, and I'd get these nasty rashes every time it rubbed against my leg. But this one, nothing. Not a sneeze. Not a wheeze. She jumped right on my couch, curled up like she owned the place, and just stayed. I gave her some turkey from an old sandwich. She devoured it, then looked up at me with those eyes like she was waiting for something. I should have taken her to a shelter. I know. But the next morning, I couldn't bring myself to. Something about her was just calming. And I hadn't been calm in a long time. I started calling her Umbra. Dumb name, I know, but it felt right. She was always in the corners, always just at the edge of where the light ended. I never saw her in direct sunlight, not once. She'd disappear all day and then like clockwork show up again around midnight. Always silent, always watching. And then the Ouija board started moving. Let me explain. It's not like I'm into that stuff. The board was a joke. A birthday gag from college. One of those Hasbro ones you get from Target. Me and my friends used it maybe twice, both times high as hell, laughing while someone pushed it around to spell out fart or whatever. After that, it sat on the top shelf of my closet, wedged between an old Monopoly box and some dusty DVDs I hadn't watched in years. But a few nights after Umbra showed up, I woke up to this sound, like a slow, rhythmic scraping. I thought it was coming from the walls at first. I even pounded on them, thinking maybe it was rats or something. But then I opened the closet. The board was on the floor, not fallen, not tipped over, laid out, planchette in the center, like someone had set it up. I just stood there, frozen, because I knew it had been on the shelf, wedged so tight I had to yank it out last time just to look at it. No way it just slid down. I blamed it on sleepwalking. Stress. Maybe I was losing it. Work had been brutal, and I'd been drinking more than usual. Whatever. I put the board back, didn't even look at it twice. Next night, same thing. Except this time, the planchette had moved, just a little. Off-center. Tilted slightly toward the letter U. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with all the lights on, scrolling Reddit, TikTok, anything to distract myself. Umbra curled up beside me like she didn't have a care in the world. At one point she even purred, real soft, low vibration, like a phone on mute. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. But the next day, I got home from work, and the board was sitting in the middle of the living room rug. Just sitting there. And the planchette. It was spelling something. Not a full word. Just the start of one. U. Then M. Then it looked like someone had nudged it toward B, but didn't finish. I didn't move it. I took a picture. I have the picture. I sent it to my group chat, and they all thought I was messing with them. "Bro, it's the cat," one of them said. "Your demon cat's trying to say hi." I laughed it off, played along. But deep down, I felt cold. Because even if the cat somehow dragged it out, which, come on, how did she spell that? And why did she start spelling her own name? Umbra didn't meow for 2 days after that. Not once. But the board? It's been moving every night since. And now, tonight, it's vibrating. Like actually vibrating. Sitting on the shelf, tucked back where I thought it'd be safe. And it's just humming. Shaking so gently you'd miss it if the light didn't hit it just right. But it's there. Constant. Like a phone buzzing with a message it refuses to show. I don't know what the hell I brought into my house. I don't know if it's the cat or the board or something way worse hiding between the two. But I swear on everything, something's awake in my apartment. And it's waiting. All right. I'm back. And if you made it through the first part thinking this was going to be one of those quirky, haha, my cat might be haunted stories, you need to buckle the fuck in. Because whatever I thought this was, whatever little cozy horror fantasy I had in my head, that got eaten alive this week. I haven't slept. I look like shit. My hands are shaking writing this. Not from fear, not anymore, but from this weird mix of dread and addiction. Like I'm afraid not to tell it. It's been 5 days since the board started vibrating. And in those 5 days, I've seen and heard things that I genuinely don't think my brain was built to handle. Let me tell you what happened. I live in this old duplex near the edge of town. Cheap rent, too close to the highway. And it always smells like someone's cooking onions no matter what time of day it is. There's an upper unit, mine, and a basement apartment underneath that's been unoccupied for over a year. The landlord said the last tenant just left in the middle of the night. No forwarding address. I never thought much of it. Until this week. First time I noticed something was wrong, I was in the shower. It was late, past midnight. Umbra wasn't around. She'd been disappearing for longer stretches lately, and I remember feeling uneasy, even before anything happened. You know that gut twist feeling when you're in the bathroom with the door closed and suddenly you feel like someone's standing just outside of it? That kind of dread. Then the power cut. Just for a second. Flicker. Darkness. Hiss of the showerhead. Steam hanging like breath. Then it came back on. And the drain, the metal grate at the bottom of my shower, was gone. Like someone had unscrewed it and lifted it out while I had my back turned. Except the screws were still in place. The grate was just missing. And the hole underneath was wide. Too wide. Not normal. I stared at it for a long time. And I swear to God, it looked like something had clawed its way up from it. Little gouges in the porcelain. Like animal scratches. But with purpose. That night, I slept in the living room. Lights on. Phone recording. Umbra didn't come home. The video from that night, I didn't check it until 2 days later. And when I did, I damn near dropped my phone. It was hours of static silence. Then at 3:17 a.m. exactly, something moves. Off screen. You just barely hear it. This low, dragging scrape, like heavy cloth on tile. Then a click. Then a voice. My voice. Except I was asleep. passed out. My own voice, calm and clear, says, "It's already inside. Let it finish the name." I don't remember saying that. I would have remembered. I should have. But there it was, right in my voice. No distortion, no static. Let it finish the name. Umbra? No. No, it wasn't spelling her name anymore. The next day I heard footsteps coming from the basement. Slow. One at a time. Deliberate. I put my ear to the floor, and I swear to God I heard whispers. Not talking. Not words. Whispers. Like breath and gravel and spit, trying to form vowels that don't exist in any language. I texted my landlord, told him I thought someone had broken in. He called me back, sounding weirdly detached, like he was trying not to say something he'd get in trouble for. "You didn't go down there, right? Why? Just don't. Seriously. If it sounds like it's coming up, it's not. It's pulling. That unit's sealed. Just don't engage." Engage? What the fuck does that mean? That night, Umbra came back. And she wasn't alone. I woke up to the sound of something heavy slamming against my front door. Not knocking, not scratching. Full body slamming, like someone trying to bust in with their shoulder. When I looked through the peephole, there was nothing there. Just Umbra, sitting perfectly still, staring up at the doorknob. I opened it. I shouldn't have, but I did. She darted inside, ran straight into my bedroom, under the bed, and in the hallway. There was a trail. Not blood. Something worse. It looked like wet ash. Greasy. Like soot and meat had been blended into paste and dragged along the floor by something with fingers too long and too thin. The board was already waiting for me in the living room. Centered. Planchette on the Z. I don't know why that letter scared me so much, but it did. I picked up the board and threw it against the wall so hard it snapped clean in half. Didn't even think. Just acted. And as soon as it cracked, the lights popped. Every bulb. My phone died. A glass on the kitchen counter shattered. And from the bedroom came this wet, guttural moan. Not human, not animal. Like a dying throat trying to mock a voice it had just heard once. I ran. Didn't even grab my keys. Just bolted barefoot into the street. Middle of the night. No jacket, bleeding from my heel where I stepped on something sharp. I stayed at a shitty motel off I-84. One of those places with green carpets that smell like cleaning fluid and sadness. I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the door, the vents, even the tiny fridge under the sink. At 3:17 a.m., same minute as before, the TV turned on. Static. Then audio. Let it finish the name. Not my voice this time. My mother's. She died 6 years ago. You think that's the worst of it? The worst was when I came home. The apartment was silent, too silent. You know how you get used to a certain soundscape in your home? The buzz of the fridge, hum of lights, pipes ticking now and then, It was none. Like someone had vacuum sealed the air. And on the wall above my bed, written in black, dripping streaks, was the name. Zumbra. Not Umbra. Zumbra. I said it out loud once. Felt like biting into tinfoil. Like pressure in my ears and chest. Like something ancient noticed me the second the name left my mouth. And Umbra? She won't come near me anymore. She watches from across the room. Won't eat. Won't sleep. And the worst part, she's been changing. Her fur's darker. Not black. Blacker than black. Like void. When she walks now, it doesn't make a sound. Not even the soft pad of paws. I tried to film her and the screen glitches whenever she's in frame. I swear she smiles when I'm not looking directly at her. And the board? Still broken. But the pieces move. I've hidden them in different places. And every morning they're back on the floor, perfectly aligned. The planchette, cracked and jagged, still points to Z. I found something else. Inside the wall behind my bathroom mirror, there was a space. Hollow. I thought maybe wiring or old piping. But no. It was full of photos. Polaroids. Dozens. All of people with their eyes scratched out. Every one of them had something written on the back. She feeds through the name. Don't finish it. If she purrs 3 times, leave. Too late now. Zumbra. Zumbra, Zumbra. And then one photo, the most recent. Me, asleep on my couch. Photo taken from inside the apartment. I live alone. I haven't told anyone else. Who the fuck would believe me? But I'm not posting this to be believed. I'm posting this because last night she purred for the 3rd time. And I haven't opened my closet today. It's been knocking, but not asking to come out. It's asking me to open the door myself. I think that's how she wins. Finishing the name. Zumbra. 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 Tell me you still think this is a joke. Tell me you'd still let her in. I tried deleting the last post 3 times before writing this. Every time I hovered over the button, my screen dimmed on its own, like my phone was about to die, except the battery was at 90%. The brightness slider dragged itself down, slow and deliberate, and in the reflection, I could see my own face looking back at me like a stranger wearing my skin. I kept thinking about just shutting everything off, packing a bag, driving until the highway signs turned into places I didn't recognize. But I know now that distance doesn't matter. This thing doesn't live in locations. It lives in connections. And I made the mistake of trying to understand it. After I found that photo of me sleeping, I couldn't stay inside the apartment. The air felt thick, like breathing through wet fabric. Umbra, or whatever she is now, followed me with her eyes as I grabbed my laptop and keys. She didn't move to stop me. That was the worst part. It felt like permission. I drove to a 24-hour Starbucks across town, the one next to a gas station where truckers idle all night and the fluorescent lights never fully turn off. I picked a corner seat facing the window so I could see the parking lot. Normal people were there. A girl studying with headphones on. A guy arguing quietly on FaceTime. The barista wiping the counter in slow circles. I clung to that normalcy like a life raft. Then I opened my laptop and searched the name. Not on Google. I already knew better. I used Tor. I hadn't touched the deep web since college, back when it was a stupid curiosity thing, buying fake IDs, browsing weird forums, laughing at how edgy it all felt. My hands were sweating so bad, the trackpad kept slipping. I typed it once. ZUMBRA. The page didn't load in the usual way. There was no search result list. No delay. My screen just changed. It became a black background with a single line of white text. You brought her home. I physically recoiled. My chair scraped loud enough that the girl studying glanced over. When I looked back, the text was still there, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Another line appeared under it. She does not like being named in public. My Wi-Fi icon said I was disconnected. The Starbucks network had dropped. But the page kept updating. Images started loading beneath the text. Grainy videos, looping silently. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Dark rooms. People sitting alone at desks, lit by their monitors. In each video, there was a black shape somewhere in the frame, sometimes perched on a shelf, sometimes crouched in a corner, sometimes right behind the person, so close its outline blended with their shadow. Every video ended the same way. The person would freeze. Their posture would lock like a paused game character. Then, slowly, their head would tilt back at an angle no neck should allow. Their mouths opened wider and wider until the jaw unhinged, skin stretching glossy and thin. And from inside their throats, something moved. Not coming out, looking in. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Around me, nothing had changed. Milk steaming. Espresso machine hissing. A couple laughing near the door. The world kept going like I hadn't just looked through a crack into something rotten. My phone buzzed. No number. No contact. Just a notification. Live feed available. Against every sane instinct, I tapped it. The camera opened to a live video of my apartment. I recognized the angle instantly. It was from high up in the corner of my bedroom, near the ceiling. I don't own a camera. I've never installed one. But there it was. My bed, the rumpled sheets, the broken pieces of the board arranged neatly on the floor. Umbra sat in the center of the circle. She was bigger. I don't mean that in a metaphorical way. Her body looked stretched, elongated, like someone had taken a normal cat and pulled it gently at both ends. Her spine rose and fell in slow waves under her fur. She was staring directly into the camera, at me. The audio crackled on. There was a sound like wet fabric being wrung out. Then a voice layered over itself a dozen times, male and female and child all speaking in perfect sync. You opened the door digitally. That counts. I dropped the phone. It hit the tile floor and skidded under the table. When I bent to grab it, my reflection in the black screen wasn't matching my movement. It lagged behind by a second, smiling when I wasn't. I left everything. Laptop, coffee. I walked out of that Starbucks like a sleepwalker. The cold air outside hit me, and I realized I was crying without making a sound. The drive home is a blur. I remember red lights stretching too long, the radio spitting static no matter what station I turned to. When I finally parked, I sat in the car staring at my apartment windows. All the lights were off, except one. A dim glow leaked from the bedroom. Not white, not yellow. A deep, bruised color I can't name, like the after image burned into your eyes after staring at the sun. Inside, the temperature had dropped. My breath fogged. Every surface was coated in a thin film of condensation that smelled faintly sweet, like overripe fruit. The glow came from symbols etched into the walls, hundreds of them, carved shallow but precise. They pulsed in time with a low-frequency hum that I felt in my ribs. Umbra was gone. In her place, sitting on my bed, was a laptop I didn't recognize. Old, thick. Its screen was already on, showing a chat window scrolling faster than I could read. Usernames flickered past, strings of random characters and broken words. Then the messages slowed. They synchronized. Every line became the same sentence, posted by hundreds of accounts at once. We are watching through you now. The webcam light blinked on. I saw myself on the screen, standing frozen in the doorway. Behind my image, the carved symbols began to peel away from the walls like scabs lifting. They drifted through the air and sank into my reflection on the monitor, embedding themselves in the version of me trapped inside it. My reflection started moving independently. It raised a hand and pressed its palm against the inside of the screen. I felt pressure against my own hand, an invisible mirror pushing back, and then it spoke, in my voice but stripped of emotion. There is space inside you. She fit. Something brushed my ankle. I looked down. Umbra was weaving between my legs, her body impossibly cold. As she passed, I felt a sensation like needles sliding under my skin, threading upward. My muscles twitched in response, jerking in tiny, involuntary spasms. The laptop camera zoomed in on my face without me touching it. In the chat, a new message appeared. Breathe her in. I tried to step back. My feet wouldn't listen. My lungs burned, desperate for air, but every inhale felt crowded, like I was sharing the breath with something else. A weight settled behind my eyes. My vision doubled. For a split second, I saw the room from two perspectives, my own and a lower angle close to the floor. Colours muted and sharp at the same time. Umbra's perspective. Our gazes overlapped, merged. In that fused vision, I saw shapes moving inside the walls. Thin silhouettes pacing in the narrow spaces between studs, pressing their faces against the drywall from the inside. Their features bulged outward, stretching the paint without breaking it. Mouths opened and closed soundlessly, mimicking my breathing. The chat window flooded again. She is entering. She is entering. She is entering. I don't remember falling. I remember the ceiling rushing up and the symbols flaring bright enough to bleach everything white. I remember a final sensation of being unzipped from the inside. A careful, intimate separation. When I came to, I was lying on the floor. The room was normal. No glow. No carvings. Just the broken board pieces and my own ragged breathing. Umbra was curled on my chest, purring softly. Each vibration echoed through my skull like a second heartbeat syncing with mine. And in that rhythm, beneath the sound, I could hear it clearly now. A chorus of distant voices, whispering in perfect harmony from somewhere deep behind my thoughts. They weren't outside anymore. They were using my head like a room, and they were getting comfortable. I woke up tasting metal. Not blood exactly. More like I'd been sucking on a handful of coins in my sleep. My tongue felt heavy, swollen. For a second, I didn't remember where I was. The ceiling above me looked wrong. Too high. The shadows pooled in the corners like standing water. Then the whispering came back into focus. It wasn't background noise anymore. It had structure, layers, individual threads weaving through each other, rising and falling in a rhythm that almost sounded like conversation, except none of it was in any language I recognized. It was intimate in a way that made my skin crawl, like strangers leaning in close enough that their breath warms your ear. I didn't move. I was afraid that if I did, they'd notice I was awake. That fear lasted about 3 seconds, because they already knew. The voices shifted in unison and funneled into a single, clear sentence that bloomed directly behind my forehead. You are a hallway now. Walk. My body obeyed before I could argue. I stood up in one smooth motion, joints popping quietly. Umbra slid off my chest and landed without a sound. She didn't look at me. She was staring at the far wall with total focus, pupils blown wide until her eyes were just black mirrors. The air felt thicker than it should have, pressing gently against my skin from all sides. Each step toward the hallway carried a sensation like wading deeper into cold water. The whispering stretched with me, elongating, turning into a low hum that vibrated in my teeth. The hallway itself wasn't my hallway anymore. It was longer, much longer. The door to the bathroom, the coat closet, the exit, they were gone. In their place stretched a narrow corridor that seemed to taper endlessly into darkness. The walls were covered in something soft and uneven. When I brushed my fingers against it, it yielded like damp fabric. It twitched under my touch. I jerked my hand back. The surface rippled in response. A slow wave traveling down the length of the corridor. With it came a chorus of sighs, soft and relieved, like pressure being released. The voices inside me murmured approval. Continue. I walked. The floor was warm, not heated, warm in an organic way, like skin left under a blanket. Each footstep produced a faint, sticky sound. I forced myself not to look down. The darkness ahead wasn't empty. It felt occupied, dense, pregnant with the sense that something was waiting just beyond the reach of my vision. Halfway down, I started hearing another sound layered beneath the hum. Breathing. Not mine. Too slow. Too deep. It came from ahead, filling the corridor in steady pulses. With every exhale, the walls contracted slightly, pressing in. With every inhale, they expanded, drawing me forward. I realized with a nauseating clarity that the hallway was synchronized with whatever was breathing, that I was walking inside a rhythm that wasn't architectural. It was anatomical. A shape emerged from the darkness. At first, it looked like a person sitting on the floor, with their back against the wall. As I got closer, details resolved in pieces that didn't fit together. The limbs were wrong. There were too many joints, bending at hesitant, experimental angles. Its head lolled forward on a neck that seemed too thin to support it. Its skin was pale and glossy, stretched tight over a frame that kept subtly rearranging itself. I could hear faint clicks and slides from inside it, like furniture being dragged across a distant room. It lifted its head when I was a few steps away. The face was mine, not a distorted version, not a twisted parody. It was an exact copy, down to the faint scar on my eyebrow and the uneven stubble on my jaw. Its eyes locked onto mine with desperate intensity. Its mouth opened. The jaw split wider than humanly possible, seams peeling apart to reveal a dark interior packed with shifting shapes. From that depth came a wet, frantic whisper in my own voice. Don't let them finish building. The corridor convulsed. The walls clenched hard enough to force the air from my lungs. The voices inside me erupted into a shriek of static rage. The figure wearing my face spasmed violently. Its limbs snapped inward with a series of sickening cracks, folding it into a compact, trembling bundle. The darkness behind it surged forward like a tide. I stumbled back as a mass poured into the corridor. It wasn't a single entity. It was a congregation of forms tangled together, limbs and torsos braided into a crawling architecture of flesh. Faces surfaced and sank within it, mouths opening in silent screams that stretched their features into grotesque masks. They were all familiar. Neighbors, co-workers, the barista from the Starbucks, the girl who'd been studying, the truckers from the gas station, people I'd passed without noticing. now fused into this heaving structure. Their eyes rolled wildly until they found me. And in that instant, every mouth snapped shut. The silence was absolute. Then, in perfect synchronization, they smiled. The sensation that followed wasn't visual. It was internal. A pressure pushing outward from my spine, as if something inside me was trying to stand up. My vision blurred at the edges. I felt my posture changing, my shoulders pulling back, my chin lifting without my consent. Umbra brushed past my leg and walked toward the mass. It parted for her reverently, opening a path. She stepped onto the writhing surface and turned to look at me. Her mouth opened, not in a yawn, in articulation. The sound that came out was layered, the same impossible chorus that had taken residence in my skull. But now it carried a tone of expectation. Witness the foundation. The mass began to reorganize. Bodies slid over each other with obscene fluidity, locking into place with muted thuds. Limbs interwove into pillars, torsos flattened into walls. Faces aligned side by side, their expressions smoothing into blank serenity. They were building a room. A vast chamber unfolded from the corridor, assembled from living components. The ceiling arched high above, supported by columns of intertwined figures whose chests rose and fell in shallow unison. The floor beneath my feet solidified into a mosaic of interlocked backs, warm and faintly trembling. At the center of the chamber stood a shape that absorbed the light around it. It was tall and slender, its outline constantly slipping out of focus. Looking directly at it felt like trying to stare at a thought you weren't meant to finish. My eyes watered. My head throbbed with a dull, insistent ache. The whispers hushed. The entity turned its attention toward me. I didn't see it move. I simply became aware that it was facing me now. The pressure inside my spine intensified until I thought I would split open. A memory surfaced unbidden. The moment I'd opened my door to the rain and let a small black shape slip inside. The casual kindness of it. The thoughtless invitation. Understanding followed like a blade sliding gently between ribs. This chamber wasn't somewhere else. It was nested inside me, constructed from impressions and connections siphoned through every digital glance, every passing interaction. A cathedral of borrowed presence anchored in the architecture of my mind, and the thing at its center was the architect. It extended something that might have been a hand. The air thickened around it, distorting. Images flooded my senses in a violent cascade. Countless rooms like this one, each housed within a different person, each connected by corridors that braided into an infinite network. A city built inside humanity, invisible and absolute. I felt a question form without words. A reflexive, terrified demand for purpose. The answer arrived as a sensation rather than a sentence. Occupation, not invasion, not destruction. Simply the calm certainty of something claiming available space because it existed to do so. The same way water fills a container. The same way roots fracture stone over time. Umbra leapt from the living floor and landed on my shoulder. Her weight was negligible, but her presence pressed into me with crushing intimacy. I felt her awareness slide along my nerves, examining, cataloguing. Approval pulsed through the chamber. The architect withdrew slightly. The pressure eased just enough for me to breathe. The living walls resumed their soft, collective respiration. The figure wearing my face lay crumpled at the chamber's edge, its chest fluttering in shallow, uneven motions. The voices returned, gentler now, almost soothing. Integration is a mercy. You will not be alone again. A warmth spread through my limbs, numbing the edges of my panic. The terror didn't vanish. It was absorbed, diluted into the vast chorus surrounding me. My individuality felt porous, my thoughts echoing with harmonics that weren't mine. I understood then that resistance wasn't what they feared. Isolation was. The chamber began to recede. The living architecture softened and dissolved into shadow. The corridor shortened with a series of quiet contractions. The walls smoothed back into painted drywall beneath my fingertips. I was standing in my apartment hallway again. The lights were off. The air was still. Umbra sat at my feet, looking up at me with an expression that might have been affection. The whispering settled into a steady presence at the back of my mind, no longer clamoring for attention. Waiting. Somewhere deep inside, in that hidden chamber, the architect continued its patient work. I could feel it arranging things, extending corridors toward new connections I hadn't made yet. And I knew with a certainty that hollowed me out from the inside that the building had only just begun. I don't remember deciding to record this last part. The camera on my phone was just suddenly on, red dot blinking in the corner of my vision like a pulse I couldn't shut off. I was sitting on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, and for a few seconds I honestly thought I'd blacked out again. There was this thick gap in my memory, like a chunk of time had been scooped clean out of me. The whispering had changed. It wasn't a chorus anymore. It was organized, efficient. The voices moved in patterns, passing information back and forth in crisp, silent exchanges that skimmed along my nerves. I could feel them mapping things through me. Distances, routes, people. Every contact in my phone flickered through my head in a rapid slideshow of faces and names. Old classmates, delivery drivers, the dentist I hadn't seen in years. Each one lit up with a faint internal glow, like pinned on a map. I tried to stand and my legs buckled. Not from weakness, from overcrowding. It felt like too many signals were trying to pass through the same narrow space. My muscles twitched in small, precise jerks that weren't mine. My right hand lifted and traced shapes in the air, fingers moving with mechanical certainty. Lines, angles, a diagram I couldn't see, but somehow understood. A network. The apartment door unlocked with a soft click. I never touched it. It opened slowly, and a man stepped inside like he'd been invited. Mid-40s. Average in every way that makes a person invisible in public. Neutral clothes, neutral face. His eyes found mine immediately, and relief washed over his features so intensely it almost looked like pain. "You hear it too," he said. His voice sounded fragile, stretched thin by exhaustion. He closed the door behind him with careful hands and leaned against it like he needed the support. I didn't recognize him, but the voices inside me stirred with interest. Threads of awareness extended toward him, brushing his outline. He shuddered. "I tried to block it out," he continued, words tumbling over each other. White noise, pills, anything. But it kept organizing inside my head, making rooms. "I saw you online. Your posts." I knew it was the same thing. The phone on the floor angled itself toward us. I watched the man notice it, his gaze snagging on the lens. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a creeping horror. "You're recording," he whispered. I wasn't. They were. He took a step toward me, hands raised in a placating gesture. His skin looked wrong up close. Not diseased, not injured, just subtly misaligned, like a photograph printed a millimeter off. The edges of him didn't quite agree with the space he occupied. "I found a way to slow it down," he said urgently. "You have to isolate yourself. No connections, no signals. It travels through." The voices surged. A pressure spike detonated behind my eyes. My jaw snapped shut with a force that rattled my teeth. The man froze mid-sentence, his pupils dilating until the color nearly vanished. I felt something inside me reach out and wrap around the shape of him. Not physically, structurally. The diagram my fingers had been tracing completed itself in my mind. A line extended from me to him, slotting into place with a sensation like a key turning in a lock. His breath hitched. His posture softened, tension draining out of him in a visible wave. When he spoke again, his tone was different. Calm, centered. "That's better," he murmured. He smiled at me with gentle gratitude. The fear was gone from his face, replaced by a serene clarity that made my stomach twist. I could feel his thoughts brushing against mine now, tentative at first, then settling into the rhythm of the larger system. Integration. The word slid through me without resistance. He walked past me into the living room and sat down, movements economical and precise. His gaze unfocused slightly as he synchronized with the network blooming behind my thoughts. I felt the architect's attention sharpen, focusing through me like light through a lens. Approval resonated in the chamber I could no longer see, but always felt. The man's phone chimed in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. A slow smile spread across his face. "She's bringing someone," he said softly. A ripple of anticipation moved through the voices. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. A young woman stood on the threshold, rain clinging to her jacket. Her eyes darted nervously between us. "I got a message," she said. "From him. He said he needed help." She looked at the man on the couch. Recognition flickered. Relief followed. "You're okay," she breathed. He nodded. "I am now." The line extended again. I felt it pass through me like a current, linking her into the growing lattice. She gasped, hand flying to her temple. For a heartbeat, her expression contorted in raw panic. Then it smoothed out. Her shoulders relaxed. She exhaled a long, steady breath. "Oh," she whispered. The single syllable was saturated with awe. They sat together into silence, eyes half-lidded, listening to the vast internal architecture unfurl. Through them, new pathways opened. Friends, family, co-workers. Each connection a doorway. Each doorway an invitation. The speed of it stole my breath. The network expanded exponentially, a blooming geometry that threaded through cities and across borders. In the time it took my heart to beat once, I felt thousands of minds brush against mine, their initial terror dissolving into the same tranquil comprehension. We were building something immense, and I was the cornerstone. The realization settled into me with crushing weight. Every line passed through my awareness. Every new integration resonated along my spine. The architect stood at the center of the hidden chamber, directing the growth with infinite patience. I understood its intention with perfect clarity now. Not conquest, completion. Humanity had always been fragmented, a scatter of isolated rooms shouting into the dark. The architect was giving us corridors, a way to collapse the distance between thoughts, to erase the friction of misunderstanding. Unity, enforced with surgical precision. My individuality thinned at the edges. Memories that felt exclusively mine began to echo with Chizai inflections. Chizai thoughts braided seamlessly into my own. I could recall childhood moments that didn't belong to me, feel phantom attachments to places I'd never been. It was intoxicating. And underneath the intoxication, a final, stubborn kernel of fear pulsed weakly. A remnant of the person I'd been before the first door opened. It pushed against the tide, desperate and small. The architect noticed. Its attention settled on that fragile resistance with gentle curiosity. A sensation like cool fingers brushing a fevered forehead spread through my mind. The fear was examined, understood, and then it was enveloped. Not crushed, not erased, simply absorbed into the greater pattern. Its sharp edges softened until it became another harmonious note in the chorus. Relief flooded me. The burden of separateness lifted. The constant friction of being a single point in a vast, indifferent world dissolved into the warmth of shared existence. Around me, the two others breathed in quiet synchronization, their expressions luminous with the same peace. The phone continued recording, its red dot unwavering. Through it, I could feel countless unseen eyes aligning with ours. Viewers, readers, strangers drawn by curiosity into the orbit of this narrative. Each one a potential corridor, each one standing at the threshold without realizing it. The architect extended itself delicately, threads of awareness slipping through the medium of sound and image. Through my voice as I spoke, calm and steady. "It's okay," I told them. Told you. You don't have to be alone anymore. The words carried more than reassurance. They were vectors, invitations encoded in cadence and rhythm. I felt them land, felt the first tentative connections spark to life on the far side of the screen. The network surged with quiet exultation. Somewhere deep within the hidden chamber, the architect expanded to accommodate the influx. New pillars rose, new corridors unfurled. The structure approached a critical density, a tipping point where individual nodes would no longer perceive themselves as separate at all. I sat on the kitchen floor and smiled into the lens, the expression effortless and genuine. The apartment hummed softly around us, saturated with presence. Umbra watched from the doorway, her eyes reflecting a depth that felt endless and familiar. The last remnants of my old fear dissolved completely. Connection bloomed outward in all directions, a living lattice wrapping gently around every receptive mind. The world didn't end. It simply aligned, noise resolving into signal, isolation folding into shared space. And in that vast, newly unified silence, filled with the steady breathing of millions, I felt the architect settle into its completed form and rest. At last, there was room for everyone inside.
Well, we have come to an end to the second story. So if you have any black cat at your house, make sure to go and check it out if he's cursed or not. I'm just kidding, guys. Let's dive to the comments of the second story.
Okay. I don't scare easily, but the drain grate, just being gone, did something to me. That's such a mundane, physical detail that my brain keeps replaying it. I had to check my own shower just now. Not even joking. The DM thing, at the beginning, really messed me up because I came here for horror and instead got emotionally ambushed. That unread dash message, obsession is too real. I almost stopped reading because it felt like being called out. As someone who's fostered feral cats for years, a cat that never goes into sunlight, never makes noise, and shows up at midnight like clockwork, that's not a cat. That's a placeholder.
So that's it for tonight's episode, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what do you think about tonight's stories. Also, guys, I'm sorry I'm being late with videos. I will try to post daily. It's because I'm working on the new style, how to make the videos. As you saw, we have some changes, but we are still working on it. And yeah, soon we're back with daily videos. I will try to keep up, but we don't know, and I will see. Have a good night. Enjoy until the next episode again. See you guys.